Hey there, EB here doing our weekly update. Good to see everybody. We've had a real busy week since the last time I did my weekly update. I think we should start off with the assassination attempt against former President Trump. I have, been honest that I am not a President Trump fan. I am not going to be supporting him, but I want to make it perfectly clear. I think it is uh, one of the stains on our history that we had a situation where somebody who's running for president would be a candidate, for the highest office again, and have an assassination attempt on his life. I think it's a stain on our country. It's not something that I think that we should take lightly. Thankfully, he was suffered minimal injuries, but the damage that it was done to the political system, I think, could be immeasurable. And obviously, the fireman who lost his life and two other people that were critically injured is quite sad. I think, regardless of our political differences, we cannot have a political system or a society where you take shots at your enemy. I, again, very glad that former President Trump was not fatally injured, because I think that would have put our country in an absolute tailspin, and I'm not sure we would have recovered. Right now, I think we have a powder keg as a country. I think the fuse is lit, and we have to figure out a way how we're going to stop that fuse from getting to the point where a bomb blows off. I don't think there should be any situation that we would condone that type of violence. The one thing that I am a little bit comforted by, I was pleased that it wasn't seemed to be a larger plot where a group of people had a political ideology, and that they tapped this young man on the shoulder to be the one that was going to be the assassin. It seems to be a lone wolf situation. I was also glad that it wasn't a minority that was the assassin, whether it was a minority who is African American, or somebody who was an illegal, or personally, for me, I was glad it wasn't somebody that was Jewish, because I think the reaction could have been a lot more dangerous by the public if that was the case. It appears to be just a very young, troubled man who was bullied as a kid in high school. Appears that he came from a conservative family. I think that his father was a Trump supporter and on the mailing list, and he was a registered Republican, although he gave a $15 donation to a Democratic cause. I think it should be fully investigated to make sure where his ideology or hate came from. Also, I am very disappointed in the Secret Service and local law enforcement. There's no way that somebody should be within 150 yards and be able to use an AR type of rifle or a deer rifle to take a shot at a politician. It's just a tremendous, tremendous failure on the part of the Secret Service to safely make a perimeter. There were a number of attendees who notified law enforcement. Hey, Morgan, how you doing? A number of law enforcement that were notified by some of the people who attended former President Trump's rally. They noticed the guy climb the building. They noticed them bear crawling, and nothing was done. I think former President Trump showed great alacrity and athleticism to realize, hey, I was shot, I got to get down. He obviously had been trained, because I think if he stayed up, there could have been an opportunity for the shooter to take another shot at him. So I am glad that President Trump lived, because I think that he needs to be beaten at the ballot box. He doesn't need to be beaten in a court case. He doesn't need to be killed. certainly I think it has changed the trajectory of the election, and I'm not sure it could ever be recovered by President Biden or anybody that's going to substitute for him. Right now, it's, the photographs of the assassination are iconic. They're going to last forever. Former President Trump putting up his fists and yelling, "Fight, fight, fight," is certainly a battle cry for his supporters. It was an impressive reaction from somebody that was shot at. I'm not sure I could have gotten up and done what he did. President Biden now has COVID, which is only going to feed into the narrative that he is sick and that he's old. It's going to take him off the campaign trail, and also appearing publicly for a week. Some friends of mine had just gotten COVID, and they were down for a week, and they said it was one of the worst things they had experienced. So evidently there's a new strain of COVID going around that people are getting. I don't think that that Biden is ultimately going to finish this race. I do believe that the pressure, once the Republican convention is completed, and there's a couple days, I think there's going to be the reinvigoration of a lot of key Democrats suggesting that he step aside. Now, he gave a little bit of a window yesterday when he said, look, if my doctors tell me that it's in my best interest to step aside, I will. So that's the first crack in the veneer that he may step aside. I believe he should step aside. I believe he was a transition president. I believe he's done a lot of good things as president, but I think the time period for him has passed, and I think the torch needs to be passed to some other Democrat. And if a Democrat loses, then they're going to lose with a younger person, and the party's going to be able to figure out where it goes from there. But I do believe that President Biden, if he stays in the race, will not only lose and lose big, not only on the Electoral College, but I believe he'll lose the popular vote for one of the first times in the last 8 elections that a Republican will win the popular vote. But I also think he's going to do significant damage downstream in House races, Senate races, and governorship races. And it's quite possible that in November, the Republicans will have the full Congress, both the House and the Senate, and they'll have the presidency, obviously. Democracy is a neat thing. We talk about it, and, whenever we have these sad events, like when Gabby Gifford was shot from Arizona, I think in like 2010. Then we had Steve Scalise at a congressional softball game. He was shot, and now we have President Trump. Everybody calls for unity. Yes, we should have unity as a population, but democracy is not built on unity. We don't have a unity government. We don't have coalition government. The founding fathers never wanted unity. They wanted a two-party system where there would be robust intellectual disagreements on policy and future of the country, but unity of political parties is not something that we have in America. We have polite differences and polite discourse and disagreements, but to say that we want to all be unified, we can be unified for a cause, whether it's a war that we have to go into or a terrorism incident, but our political system isn't based on unity. So I do like that there is disagreement. I like it to be vigorous. I like it to be civil. I don't think we should have this hate speech. I think that from both parties, and I know I'm going to get criticized for this, but the Democrats have said that Trump is like Hitler, which is wrong, and that democracy is at stake, although I believe there are portions of democracy at stake, like our justice system. But the Republicans, and Trump in particular, has also said some pretty hateful things about Biden and about some of the Democrats, and calling them radicals and different things like that. So I think if we could have less bellicose, we would have less true hate. Right now, there is so much hate going on. Um, Trump certainly has been the beneficiary of some massive court rulings in the last month, whether it's the immunity decision from the Supreme Court. Um, and on Monday morning, Judge Eileen Cannon, surprisingly, in the classified documents case in Fort Pierce, Florida, dismissed the entire case because she held that the independent counsel, Jack Smith, was unconstitutionally appointed and the investigation was using Treasury funds. There is no legal support whatsoever for her decision. This is well settled law that John Roberts, before he became Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, helped write. It's been affirmed from Watergate all the way forward through Ken Starr investigating Clinton. And so Judge Eileen Cannon did something that was so unusual. Her 93-page decision is really devoid of true constitutional scholarly type of analysis. She used Justice Clarence Thomas's verbiage in his concurring opinion, concurring meaning he agreed with the decision that the president should have immunity, but in his concurring opinion, he raised the issue of whether he thought it was appropriate for Jack Smith to be appointed in the first place. Well, that's a basis that Judge Cannon used to justify dismissing the entire classified documents case. I think she's an out-of-control judge. I'm not alone in that. There are plenty of constitutional scholars. Trump's former lawyer, Ty Cobb, who is the great-great-grandson of the baseball player Ty Cobb, plenty other practicing lawyers who feel that Judge Cannon has gone so far beyond her skis that she should be removed from the case, and the case was immediately appealed by the independent prosecutor's office to the 11th Circuit. I'm willing to bet that the case is going to be reversed by them, and they're going to disqualify Judge Cannon from hearing the case again. It's ultimately going to go up to the Supreme Court. And so we're going to see where this conservative court comes down on independent counsel. But it's very disappointing that we have a judge like Eileen Cannon on the bench. And I say that because there were 11 other pending motions that she has not ruled upon, some that have been pending since last fall. This independent counsel argument was only done 3 weeks ago, and she resolved that within 3 weeks, while she's let all these other motions remain pending for the last 8 months. I think she doesn't belong on the bench. She certainly doesn't have the experience. She only participated in 4 trials when she worked for the Justice Department, and I think she's only had 3 or 4 trials, criminal trials, since she's come onto the bench. I don't think it's by chance that she released that decision on the morning of the start of the Republican presidential convention. I think that was done purposefully, and I think if she wanted to put the judiciary in a better light, she would have waited till after this week for the convention to end before she released that decision. But she knew what she was doing by releasing that decision Monday morning at the start of the convention, which really goes to show you how political she has acted in the case. So I was extremely disappointed in that. I think the Republicans are doing an excellent job at their convention. I have tried to watch it, some of it from an objective standpoint. I think they've done a really good job of putting forth unity in favor of their candidate, Donald Trump. I think they put on some really good Gold Star family stuff. I think they put on some good stuff about the Israeli hostages, and then some of the Jewish students at the Ivy League schools that are suing because of the anti-Semitism and that they don't feel safe on campus. I think some of the speeches by Nikki Haley and DeSantis were good. Let's talk about the selection of J.D. Vance. I think it's a good selection if you are a MAGA type of supporter. J.D. Vance, really unusual background. He came from the hills of Kentucky and Ohio, uh, the mountain areas. He wrote a book called Hillbilly Elegy. He was a Marine. He had some chemical dependency. He went to Yale Law School, became a hedge fund operator, made a lot of money, and ran for Senate in 2022 and won from Ohio. What's interesting is 2016 and 17, he was an anti-Trumper. He made statements that he said Trump is America's Hitler. He made statements that he is cultural heroin. He said that he should not be elected based on his temperament. But there was a transformation, obviously, that took place. And now J.D. Vance is as conservative can be, even more so than President Trump. There's two scary things that, hey, Kimberly, hey, Sharon, good afternoon. Two scary things that he believes in that I'm totally against. One is he believes that there is no right to abortion for any reason whatsoever, and that would be for rape, for incest, and life of mother. So he is across the board in no right to choose or right for reproductive rights for women. So that's a position that Trump himself doesn't even take, because he does believe in incest, life of the mother, and the right to abortion up to, I think, 16 weeks. The other thing is he is a very much an isolationist who doesn't believe in supporting Ukraine with weapons or money. That's a real problem, because I think that after former President Trump is elected in November, I think they're gonna cut off the funding to Ukraine, and that's gonna greenlight Putin to come in and really take over a significant portion of Ukraine. I think the better pick would have been Marco Rubio, a seasoned senator, tremendous foreign policy experience, plus he would have gotten Hispanic vote for Donald Trump. Even Tim Scott would have been a good pick, because it would have brought in more African Americans. I don't think J.D. Vance is going to bring in any states. He could help with the Rust Belt states of Wisconsin and also possibly Pennsylvania, but he's not going to bring in any more votes. He's certainly going to detract from the suburban women and those that believe in pro-reproductive rights. So I think that was a bad selection. I think a better one could have been Glenn Youngkin, the governor of Virginia, because that would have delivered Virginia and other battleground states. So I think the pick is a surprising pick. It was really championed by Donald Trump Jr., but it's going to show that it's a unified MAGA party, not a Republican party, but a MAGA party, and that he is going to be the heir apparent to Donald Trump after the next election if Trump wins, and then he's term limited out after 2028. We also have President Biden talking about, and he has COVID-19. I think I said that, which is pretty devastating for his campaign. I think that he coming out and talking about Supreme Court reforms, I think we absolutely need them. I absolutely think that the Article 3 lifetime appointment should be changed. It's going to be hard. It takes, 2/3 of the Senate and 2/3, 37 states to change for a constitutional amendment. But I definitely think that judges should have an age limit and a term limit. I think politicians should have age limit and term limited. And I think that President Biden's going to be pushing that. So at least the Democrats will come forward. And I don't agree that the court should be expanded to like 15 justices, because each new president would then keep expanding the court. But I definitely think there should be a term of maybe 10 years, maybe 15 years at the most, for a Supreme Court justice to be able to be seated. I don't think it should be a lifetime appointment. We are going to see ethics reform being pushed. based on, what's happening with Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito. I think there's going to be a Justice Department investigation into Clarence Thomas and all the money and benefits that he's received, and I'm not sure he's reported that on his tax returns. We shall see. Also, Harlan Crow, who's the benefactor who gives all of these junkets to Supreme Court Justice Thomas, I think he's going to be investigated on whether he's reported those as gift tax returns. Good morning, good afternoon, Rebecca. Nice to see you. So I'm very anxious to see these discussions about Supreme Court reforms. I think that Justice Roberts is losing control of his court. I think he's losing the respect of the public. It's at the lowest it's ever been in the last 70 years. So tonight's the last night of the convention, so we'll hear a lot of the Trump family members speak. I think you'll hear Don Jr. and Eric, and I'm not sure whether Ivanka's going to show up and speak. I don't think so. You may hear some of his other kids speaking. I think it was impressive that Don Jr.'s 17-year-old daughter got before the microphone last night and spoke. I mean, there's no question that they're an impressive family. Just disagree with them politically. Alec Baldwin dismissal happened this week because the government had real live bullets that they had not turned over to the defense 3 days into the trial, and it was dismissed with prejudice, cannot be rebrought. The prosecutor in that case has resigned. There was prosecutorial misconduct alleged by the judge. I really think that that whole entire prosecution was botched. We're starting to see some bad prosecutions. In the Karen Reed case, we see it in the Alec Baldwin case. Somebody did die, and somebody needed to be held accountable for putting real live bullets in that gun on the production. So I'm not a big Alec Baldwin fan, but I certainly am a fan if there was discovery materials that should be turned over that were not. I'm watching Jake Gyllenhaal in Presumed Innocent right now, and they have a situation where the person that he's alleged to have killed, another prosecutor, she had secreted evidence and didn't turn it over in prosecutions, and I hate that. I hate it when prosecutors do that. We also found out this week that the Becky Hill case seems to be escalating. Becky Hill, the former clerk of court of Colleton County, who presided over the Murdaugh trial, and we know all of her problems that she's had with plagiarism in her book and all the different things that were alleged with the jury. It's been referred to our Lexington County prosecutor here, Solicitor Rick Hubbard, who is as straight-laced as can be. He's got integrity, he's dogged, he's honorable. It wouldn't surprise me if criminal charges now come from this, because it's already been through a grand jury, obviously, and Rick may impanel his own grand jury. So we shall see where that goes. Alex Murdaugh. Murdaugh's back in the news. Dick Harpootlian and Jim Griffin appealed the 40-year sentence that he got from United States District Court Richard Gergel when he pled guilty on September 23, 2023 to 24 federal crimes. I think Dick Harpootlian thought that Judge Gergel would show leniency the same way that he did when he sentenced Corey Fleming, the former lawyer who's now disbarred, who helped steal some of the Satterfield money. I think Dick Harpootlian thought that Judge Gergel would be more lenient because Dick was instrumental in getting Judge Gergel on the bench. That was not the case. He's appealing the sentence based on the Eighth Amendment, cruel and unusual punishment. I don't see that sentence being reduced. He pled guilty. He did it knowingly and voluntarily, so I don't think he was under duress. Judge Gergel did all of the prophylactic questions to Alex Murdaugh before he pled guilty, so I think that's just a waste of money. Now we have the Senator Bob Menendez conviction that took place. He was convicted of all 30 counts of, bribery for the gold and the cash that he had, and he did the cowardly thing where he blamed his wife and said that she was the one that was accumulating this money and hiding it. He resigned, or gave an indication that he was going to resign from the Senate. He's currently the New Jersey senior senator. Cory Booker's the junior senator from New Jersey. There was at least 17 Democratic senators that said that they want him to resign. Believe it or not, he's running as an independent. Adam Lee is the Democratic candidate for the Senate in New Jersey. He's a House member. And Bob Menendez, is a convicted felon, is running as an independent. This is a guy that's holding on to dear life to his office. He's going to end up getting many, 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 many years in prison and spend the rest of his life in prison. He didn't learn his lesson. He had a hung jury in 2017 on similar bribery allegations, and he started it again. So I have no sympathy for him. But what this does show is it goes against the Republican canard that we're hearing. Oh, this Justice Department is weaponized. It only goes after, the Navarro and Steve Bannon and Trump and all the other acolytes of Donald Trump that we see. Roger Stone. Well, no. They've prosecuted and convicted President Biden's son, Hunter Biden, and now they've taken down a very senior long-term Democratic senator. And what I believe is that these are good civil servants who work in the Justice Department and champion justice. So I think that should be telling to the public in general. I also want to kind of end up on a good note, which is I was talking on my podcast that's going to come out, the Good Skill Betting on Yourself podcast. I've already have 4 in the can of some really interesting people you're going to see come out in the next couple weeks. But one instance I experienced that Renee and I had is we were in Miami, I think it was like 2014 or 15, and we were at a continuing legal education seminar. And we were going out of the hotel to go jog on the beach, and the guy said, hey, why don't you go all the way down to the 15th Street lifeguard stand, and I think you'll see the most amazing thing that you've ever seen. So we took a cab or whatever, whether it was an Uber back then, down to 15th Street in Miami, and there was a guy named Robert Ravencraft. Robin Ravencraft is one of the most unique people. He's an idiot savant, and every single day since 1968, he hasn't missed a day. He's run 8.5 miles on Miami Beach. Now he's in his late 60s, early 70s. His feet are all deformed from running. He's never missed a day. He has run during hurricanes. He had a broken leg and he ran. He has been sick with the flu. Can you imagine how many days that is since 1968? There's many people that run a mile a day. But to run 8.5 miles a day, and there's people that come from all over the world to run with him, and he'll give you a nickname, and if you come back 5 years later, he'll remember the day that you ran, what your name is and what your nickname is. So look up Robin Ravencraft. We ran with him. It was one of the greatest experiences. There's probably 20 people that ran with us. The next unique experience is when the kids were young, we were skiing in Breckenridge, Colorado, and we had just gotten off the slope, walking to our car, and a young kid comes up to us who was probably 13 years old at the time, had curly, long hair, really neat-looking snowboarder, and he said, excuse me, sir, can you give me a ride? So I said, sure, where are you going? He said, oh, it's just on the other side of, the slopes across the street, about a mile up the road. So I said, sure. So, we got in the car, and we started talking, and I said, well, what are you doing? And he said, I'm here talking about mountaineering. I'm giving a mountaineering seminar. And I said, yeah, I love the Breckenridge slopes, Casey. The Imperial Chair is 13,000 feet. It's great. Highest slope in North America. So we're in the car, and he says, I'm here giving a seminar on mountaineering. And I'm like, okay, you staying with your parents? He said, no, I'm staying with some people that I just met. They know my parents through their seminars. My parents are mountaineers. My father and my stepmother, he said. And I said, really? Your parents put you on a plane, sent you? Where are you from? California. Okay. They put you on a plane and you're here? And I said, well, if you're mountaineering, what are you snowboarding? He said, well, I'm also a professional snowboarder. I do a lot of jumps. And they were filming me here on the half pipe. So I said, oh, I suppose that, you've climbed Mount Everest. This was a 13-year-old kid. And I just said, said it out of jest. And I just heard him say, well, actually, I did. And we all snap and look at him. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, not only have I climbed Mount Everest, but I climbed all 7 peaks. All 7 peaks throughout the world. And I did that before I was 13 years old. And I'm the only 13-year-old that has done it without oxygen. And we looked him up. His name is Jordan Romero. And it was the most unique experience. This young kid who was 14 years old, that, here he is doing a seminar at 14 years old on mountaineering, mountain climbing. He's here doing a commercial for half pipes. And then he, reveals to us that he climbed all 7 peaks, the major peaks in our world. So it was a pretty amazing thing. So now we'll go to some questions that that were asked. Kimberly asked, my book, Good Skill, is that going to be available on Amazon? It will be. The next thing is they wanted to Casey wanted to hear my thoughts on the assassination attempt. Do I believe it's as simple as a young man's lone wolf attempt, or is it as complex as the Iranian plot to kill former President Trump? I think we don't know that yet. We don't know where this kid was doctrinized and what the reasons were for him wanting to take President Trump's life. I think we're going to have to look at a lot of his social media, some of the things that maybe he learned in his house or from his friends. Again, I think the Secret Service really botched it, and I think they have culpability. And I think this absolutely puts him in the pantheon of presidents, Arthur and Roosevelt, who were shot at, Kennedy, obviously, Reagan, and I think Ford, if I'm not mistaken, there was an attempt on Ford's life. They don't really talk about it much, but it's iconic, that photograph of him, bleeding from the ear with the flag behind him, showing his fist. I think it was good. I've already discussed, Casey, about the judges aging up. I think there should absolutely be age limits and term limits for all occupations. I just don't feel like that if I'm 78 years old that I'm going to have the skill set to drive a car like I did when I was 20. And certainly as a lawyer, I think there may be some slippage that takes place. So the next question is, do I think that Gloria Satterfield was pushed down the stairs? I don't believe she was pushed down the stairs. I don't think anybody tried to kill her. Is it to be believed that Alex Murdaugh did it? I don't think so. I don't think we're ever going to find the answer, like I've said all along. Michelle, who asked this question, the injuries are going to be the same. If she fell because the dogs tripped her, or she tripped herself, or she was pushed, she's still going to have the contusion on her head. She's going to have the broken ribs. So it wasn't like she was hit with a blunt object. Lindy wants to know about the Chad Daybell trial. I think it's fascinating. I think they are dark individual, Lori Daybell, and I think the one that we're going to see in Arizona is going to result in a guilty verdict. Chad Daybell obviously got the death penalty. Lori Daybell did not, but she should have. Both, I think, are dangerous people. Kathy asked, politicians used to be admired for their leadership. When do you feel that we lost the respect for politicians? I think it happened with Clinton. Even though Clinton did some good things as a president, I didn't vote for him. I think what he did in the Oval Office really soiled how we view politicians, and ever since then, the public has looked at them in a different way. Reagan, whether you agreed with him or not, had full integrity, was an admirable person. Same with Jimmy Carter, whether you disagreed that he was too micromanaged as a president. The man served with his country, was an admiral in the Navy. Gerald Ford. We're dumbing down the quality of our politicians. So I believe it happened with Clinton. I also think it happened the start with Watergate, obviously with Nixon and his crooked behavior. Claire asks, she has a question regarding the Stephen Smith case. Where was the pill-popping, energized insomniac Alex Murdaugh that night? Could he have been the killer wanting to protect his sons and the family name? Not sure. Still want to find out why he and Randy decided they wanted to go to the accident scene the next day. I think we're going to find out. On True Sunlight this week, Liz and Mandy talked about some Facebook messages, and I think that they could yield some things that in the ongoing investigation, so we shall see. Kathy asks about the Constitution. Is there a way that it's going to be amended to possibly deal with the Supreme Court justices? I think the Constitution is a perfect document for its time. But I don't think that our founding fathers could forecast what society would be like 200, 300, 400 years from now. And I think it should be a document that evolves, not written by judges, not written by politicians, but voted on by the states. So I think we need more constitutional amendments, that they should appear on national ballots. So I think the Constitution needs to be enlarged and expanded. But I am worried about it. People use it for their own purposes. The criticism against the liberal Supreme Court justices, where they were writing things into the Constitution that didn't exist, like reproductive rights and the right of privacy. But now we're seeing the Supreme Court's doing the same thing when it's conservatives, and they're writing in the immunity of the president and different things, as well as the unconstitutionality of the special counsel that Eileen Cannon did as a district court judge. So we shall see. But that is a weekly update for this week. Let me look on the list here. We have Morgan, Jan McCoy, thank you. We also have Sharon Knowles, thanks for joining me. Kimberly Kavich, Rebecca Lobich, Morgan, Nicole Sanders. Cheryl Ann asked, what is the connection with Harpootlian and Biden? It is a very solid connection. Dick Harpootlian got very close to Biden during the Obama era. He was close to Obama. Dick is not a fan of the Clintons, and so he started supporting Obama. The Bidens got very close with Harpootlian. I think I've disclosed that I was at a fundraiser, the initial one at Dick Harpootlian's house, when President Biden started the run in 2020. Dick often goffs with President Biden, and he speaks to him privately on the phone. They are extremely, extremely close. And I'm hopeful that Dick's going to give President Biden the advice that he needs to step aside. So, Casey Odell, thanks for all your kind messages you sent me, and you've sent me so many great gifts. And Patty Dasher, she's the decoupage queen, and she's always great to me. So with that, everybody have a great weekend, and I'll see you next week. Thanks for listening. EB out.